Three Dog Night sold more records than the Beatles, scored 21 consecutive top 40 hits, and built their fortune on three voices sharing one spotlight. But behind the joyful harmonies, pressure and ego quietly tore the band apart, until their unity was so broken, even elevator rides had to be scheduled separately. So how did America's happiest band end up unable to stand each other? The answer starts in Los Angeles, 1967. Los Angeles, 1967. Danny Hutton, restless and ambitious, imagined a band that broke every rule, three lead singers each with equal billing and no single frontman. The idea sounded impossible in a music scene built on egos and spotlights, but Hutton was convinced it could work. He reached out to Corey Wells, a powerhouse blues shouter from Chicago, and Chuck Negron, a New Yorker with a 4-octave range who'd landed in California on a basketball scholarship. Together, they recruited a tight backing lineup: Jimmy Greenspoon on keyboards, Joe Shermy on bass, Michael Alsup on guitar, and Floyd Sneed on drums. The name came from Hutton's girlfriend June Fairchild. She told him about indigenous Australians who measured the coldest nights by how many dogs you needed to sleep beside for warmth. A three-dog night meant survival against the cold. The band adopted the name as a symbol of unity and shared struggle, not knowing it would one day turn ironic. From the start, the chemistry was electric in the studio. Hutton, Wells, and Negron traded leads and harmonies, each voice distinct but blending into something bigger than any one of them. Dunhill Records did not hesitate. They signed the band immediately. Their debut single, a cover of the Harry Nilsson song One, hit the airwaves in 1969. Negron's aching lead vocal drove the song up the charts, peaking at number 5 and staying on the Hot 100 for 16 weeks. The experiment worked. Three Dog Night had cracked the code. Three voices, no single star, and a hit right out of the gate. Hit after hit poured out of the studio. In just 18 months, Three Dog Night landed 10 songs in the top 40, a pace that left even the most seasoned acts scrambling to keep up. Their formula was simple, but relentless. Find the best songs, no matter who wrote them, and transform each one with three voices hitting from different angles. The band's reach stretched across the country, their sound everywhere from jukeboxes to car radios. When Mama Told Me Not to Come hit number 1 in May 1970, it was not just another chart topper. On July 4th, 1970, that same single became the very first number 1 song on Casey Kasem's brand new American Top 40 Countdown. Suddenly, Three Dog Night was not just popular, they were the measuring stick for every other band in America. The next year, Joy to the World arrived like a shot of pure sunlight. Negron's voice rode the goofy, unforgettable chorus straight to the top. For 6 weeks in 1971, it stayed at number 1, giving a country worn down by war and unrest a reason to sing along. The band's harmonies became a kind of national therapy, a sound that promised joy even when the world felt heavy. By 1973, the numbers defied belief. 21 consecutive top 40 hits. More than the Beatles, more than the Stones. No other American act matched their streak. Three Dog Night had become a chart machine, churning out anthems on a schedule no one else could touch. Their blend of voices was unstoppable, but the pressure to keep delivering never let up. Critics circled like sharks. Rolling Stone dismissed Three Dog Night as a hit producing Corporation and Mod Clothing, a band more assembly line than inspiration. The pressure behind the scenes was even worse. Dunhill Records demanded a new single every 3 months. No breaks, no creative downtime, just relentless output. The band was locked in a loop. Record, release, tour, repeat. There was no room for error and no space to breathe. Negron started to crack under the weight. Heroin, once a backstage secret, became his daily companion. On stage, he could still summon the joy that had made Joy to the World a national anthem, but backstage, trust was unraveling. The irony hit hard in 1974, when The Show Must Go On climbed to number 4. The title felt like a cruel joke. The band was falling apart. chart, but the world expected another hit. The chart positions told the story. After years of dominance, Till the World Ends limped to number 32 in July 1975. The hit machine was sputtering, and the cracks were now public. That same summer, Negron was arrested for cocaine possession in Kentucky. The news made headlines, confirming what the music press had whispered for months. The band's unity was a facade. What had started as a radical experiment in shared power was now a logistical nightmare. Managers stopped trusting the singers to be in the same room, let alone rely on each other on stage. The foundation was gone. The grind, the criticism, and addiction had done their work. The harmony that once defined Three Dog Night now existed only on vinyl. Tour managers started carrying notepads filled with floor assignments and elevator schedules. At hotels, one singer would be booked on the first floor, no elevator needed. The other two were assigned to different wings, each with their own elevator bank. If a hotel only had one elevator, arrival times were staggered and someone always took the stairs. On tour buses and at airports, arrival and departure times were plotted down to the minute, just to keep the three lead voices from crossing paths. The system was precise, almost military, but it was never about efficiency. It was about survival, about keeping the peace long enough to get through the next show. The separation was not just backstage, it bled onto the stage itself. By 1976, the Greek Theater in Los Angeles, a venue that once echoed with their harmonies, became the scene of the band's final unraveling. Only Chuck Negron showed up for the concert. The other two lead singers were gone, replaced by hired vocalists who had never shared a dressing room, let alone a hit. Fans who had come to hear the three voices that defined a generation watched strangers trying to fill the void. The band that once measured the coldest nights by how closely they huddled for warmth now could not even share an elevator, a stage, or a song. The elevator protocol was more than a quirk of tour logistics. It was the final, unforgettable proof that trust was gone. The very structure that made Three Dog Night a phenomenon, three equal voices with no single leader, had become a system for keeping them apart. By the time the last note faded at the Greek Theater, there was nothing left to repair. Chuck Negron's fall after Three Dog Night was not just a headline about addiction, it was a slow-motion disaster. At his lowest, he burned through $20,000 a week on heroin, selling off pensions and savings until there was nothing left. By the early 90s, the man whose voice had filled stadiums was living in abandoned buildings in South Central Los Angeles. His 6'1" frame shrunk to 126 pounds. He cycled in and out of rehab 37 times. Each attempt another shot at clawing his way back from the edge. It was not until September 1991, in a rehab facility called CRI Help, that he finally found sobriety. Negron laid it all bare in his memoir, Three Dog Nightmare, describing himself as a pathetic ass and a self-indulgent junkie. The cost was total: money, health, trust, and almost his life. In 1981, Danny Hutton and Corey Wells revived Three Dog Night for the nostalgia circuit, casinos and state fairs, but never with all three original voices. Chuck Negron made a brief return, only to be pushed out for good by 1985. Even after Negron's sobriety, the rift remained. When the two surviving singers cross paths in Los Angeles, Negron says Hutton runs like I'm carrying some kind of weapon. The band's catalog, meanwhile, refused to fade. In 1994, Joy to the World bounced through the ping-pong scene in Forrest Gump, introducing their sound to a new generation. Joe Shermy died in 2002, Jimmy Greenspoon followed, and Corey Wells passed in 2015. The music survived, but the brotherhood never healed. Today, Three Dog Night's songs still fill stadiums and soundtracks, even as the men behind them remain divided. In an era obsessed with nostalgia, their story warns that harmony on stage can hide fractures off stage. Sometimes, the music outlasts the bonds that made it possible. Share your thoughts below.